From August 1968 to September 1985, 8 double murders took place in the province of Florence, Italy. Young couples, caught in moments of intimacy in isolated locations, were brutally killed by a Beretta Series 70 handgun-firing Winchester cartridges marked with an H on the base. In some cases, additional wounds were inflicted by a stabbing weapon, resulting in the macabre removal of fetishistic items from the female victims in 4 out of 8 instances. These crimes were committed by the killer of the couples, better known as the Monster of Florence. The case marked the first recognized instance of serial murder in Italy. Its history remains intricate and confusing, yet to be fully clarified. The case remains open. There were many leads and false trails, from Pietro Pacciani, the most prominent suspect, to the conviction of his alleged accomplices, to theories involving possible lovers, satanic cults, and numerous other hypotheses. The investigation remains open to this day. The locations of the 8 double murders led investigators to speculate that the killer was familiar with the area and, in at least some cases, had stalked the victims before committing the crimes. This heightened concern about the Monster of Florence resulted in a change in the habits of the population. Near the Tuscan city, Barbara Locci and Antonio Lobianco, 2 lovers, were the first victims of the Monster of Florence. On August 21, 1968, around midnight, they were inside a car, secluded on a road near the Signa Cemetery, next Florence. While they were in the car, they were shot dead with 8 gunshots. With them was Locci's son, Natalino Mele, just 6 years old. The child survived and managed to escape from the blood-filled car, finding help at the door of Francesco de Felice, who came to his aid. The deceased lovers were both married. In fact, the prime suspect was Locci's husband, a Sardinian man named Stefano Meli, who fell under suspicion due to his inconsistent statements, eventually accusing other Sardinian lovers of his wife, including Salvatore and Francesco Vinci. In the end, Meli himself confessed and was convicted. However, the case was far from resolved. 15 years later, the case was reopened and linked to the subsequent horrific murders committed by the monster. The second pair of victims, Pasquale Gentilcore, 19 years old, and Stefania Pettini, 18 years old, were killed on September 14, 1974 in Saguignale. He was shot 3 times, she 5 times, and while still alive, she was stabbed dozens of times. A grapevine branch was inserted into her vagina, and her left breast and pubic area were removed. Investigations revealed that the girl had confided in a friend about encountering a strange and unusual person. After 7 years, in 1981, there were 2 more double murders. The first in Scandicci involved Giovanni Foghi, 30 years old, and his girlfriend Carmela Danuccio, 21 years old. They were killed, and she was mutilated in the pubic area. A man was arrested but released because another double murder was committed while he was in custody. Stefano Baldi, 26 years old, and Susanna Cambi, 24 years old. Once again, the girl was mutilated. She had also confessed to her mother about being stalked. Paolo Menardi and Antonella Migliorini were the 4th couple murdered in June 1982 in Baccagliano, a hamlet of Montespertoli. In this case, the initial shots fired did not kill the man, who managed to start the car, but more shots were fired, killing the 2 lovers. Probably due to the less isolated location, the murderer did not have time to mutilate the girl. This case linked the murders to that of Locci and Lobianco. Stefano Mele was questioned again, but they had no suspicions about him, so Francesco Vinci was accused again. But he was also released following a new murder, that of the 5th couple, 2 German tourists, murdered in 1983. Both were males, one had long hair and was probably mistaken for a woman. Penultimate double murder, Claudio Stefanacci and Pia Gilda Rontini. The 2 lovers were killed in July 1984 while they were in a car near Vicchio. The girl's body was stabbed and mutilated in the pubic area and left breast. The last double murder was committed in 1985. Unlike the other victims, they were in a tent at Scopeti, a small town near Florence. A few days later, a piece of the woman's breast was sent to the Florence prosecutor's office, addressed to Silvia Della Monica, the prosecutor in charge of the investigation. The case is far from closed. The involvement spans from the FBI to criminologists, psychologists, sociologists, and analysts of all sorts. A new monster emerges on the horizon thanks to an anonymous letter advising investigators to look into Pacciani, already flagged by the SAM anti-monster squad, as he fit the profile of the so-called Monster of Florence. Pietro Pacciani fits the perfect physique du role, with that murder in 1951, where he caught his girlfriend with a lover. While he was in prison, Also convicted of raping his two daughters, on November 1, 1994, he was sentenced to life imprisonment for 7 of the 8 double murders attributed to the so-called Monster of Florence. For the murder committed in 1968, there is no convincing evidence. The Court of Appeal disagrees and acquits him, disrupting the plans of a prosecutor's office that had even found accomplices of the Mercatella farmer in the meantime. Pacciani will die, some say under suspicious circumstances, before facing a new trial. The investigation also involved some of Pacciani's friends, the so-called lunch companions, Mario Vanni, Giancarlo Lotti, Fernando Pucci, Giovanni Faggi. Lotti himself provides 3 or 4 different versions regarding the motive that would have driven them to kill, each one stranger than the last. He finally reveals that a doctor would have recruited them to obtain the anatomical parts removed from the female victims, a doctor whom subsequent investigations failed to trace. However, a pharmacist is indicted, who according to the accusatory premise would have acted as a link between the group of so-called joyful instigators and the group of material executors, consisting of Pietro Pacciani, Mario Vanni, and Giancarlo Lotti. The pharmacist and his entire family, after enduring a rare media lynching that continues to this day, will be acquitted because the fact does not exist. The Florence prosecutor's office takes a step back, and the Perugia prosecutor's office steps forward. A Perugian gastroenterologist disappeared in Lake Trasimeno in October 1985. Village rumors point to his involvement in the Monster of Florence murders. Curious and suggestive aspects emerge about the life of the Perugian doctor, his mysterious departure, but nothing concrete to support the accusations. In November 2020, as reported, the judge Angela Fantecchi closed the last of the investigations into the Monster of Florence. She still urges the search for new concrete elements aimed at uncovering the truth of the matter. After 55 years of investigations, there is still no culprit for 3 of the 8 double murders attributed to the Monster of Florence. Has everything possible been done to reach at least an acceptable truth? Maybe a re-examination of the investigation files might reveal new elements, tragically overlooked.